Did you know that Virginia is the birthplace of American whiskey? Well, they've been making it there since 1607, and Catoctin Creek has been honoring that tradition of small craft rye whiskey since 2009. Virginia grain, Virginia water, and Virginia barrels. Catoctin Creek, the Virginia rye whiskey. This is brought to you by Smooth Ambler, a proud member of the Bourbon Pursuit family. Smooth Ambler builds on the traditional roots of American whiskey through innovative blends, proudly sourced whiskeys, and a unique line of their own homemade bourbon and rye recipes made in West Virginia. So venture off the traditional trail and go see them in Maxwellton, West Virginia. They'd love to welcome you to the family that they're building around their whiskey. Wilderness Trail is sweet mash Kentucky straight bourbon and rye whiskey, made by master distiller Shane Baker and fermentation expert Dr. Pat Heist. Whether it is high rye or wheated, cask strength or bottled and bond, Wilderness Trail is always non-chill filtered premium whiskey with unparalleled flavor. Distilled, aged, and bottled in Danville, Kentucky. So who's going to be lining up first at each distillery to go and get their own bottle? Anybody camping out? This is Bourbon Pursuit, the official podcast of bourbon, bringing to you the best in news, reviews, and interviews with people making the bourbon whiskey industry happen, and I'm one of your hosts, Kenny Coleman. So what happens when you bring 5 of the top distillers together and have them each provide 2 of their very best barrels? Well, you get the Bardstown Collection. Jim Beam, Heaven Hill, Log Still, Preservation, and Bardstown Bourbon Company, they've all come together along with the tourism side of Visit Bardstown to release 5 special edition bottles that will benefit the community of Bardstown. All of the proceeds will go to the Main Street Association, hospitality, and first responders. These exclusive expressions have a unified packaging featuring Bardstown imagery, and the only difference is just a little piece of the label where each brand's logo is at the very bottom of the bottle. And in this episode, we're joined by Freddie No, Connor Driscoll, Lynn Dant, and Steve Nally to talk about the process of making this collection. And these bottles will be released at each distillery starting on January 13th, and the cost is going to range anywhere from $160 to $250 per bottle. So get ready to collect the whole set. With that, enjoy today's episode, and now here's Fred Minnick with Above the Char.
I'm Fred Minnick, and this is Above the Char. This week's idea comes from Matthew Dart, who writes me on fredminnick.com. I have noticed there have been some occasions where my palate seems off for no reason, and whiskey tasting is very disappointing. I will even sample my favorites, and that confirms that something is off. Does this happen to you? If so, is there anything that you can do about it? Matthew, you have asked me one of the greatest questions I have answered for myself personally in my career, and that is to know when my palate is off. And the thing about it is that there are certain days that I call them trauma days. So I have what I call trauma days. Like I have anniversaries of times where I have like an unwanted memory, and they're anniversary days that can have a physical and a mental impact on me, and I won't taste alcohol that day. In fact, during those days, not much tastes like anything. There's an actual mental blockage in people's memories of taste buds on some anniversaries. There's also times when, I didn't get much sleep. So when I don't get at least 5 hours of sleep, my palate is a wreck. I can't, it's not good. I need, my body is all about sleep. If my sleep cycle is off, I'm a wreck on my palate. I can function otherwise and do other things. Oddly, I can write really well when I haven't had much sleep. So that's another one. But I think this is a very personal question, Matthew. And the thing is you got to understand your body. You got to understand what has happened to you, what you've eaten, and things that have an impact on you. So the next time you go through this, I want you to jot down what you had for lunch or breakfast, and then see if there's a similarity from the last time that you did it or that happened. If you have been in a car accident or lost someone you really care about, and it happened to be on the anniversary of that day, take a look and see if it's that. There's a lot of reasons here, Matthew, but This is a very common, very, very common issue. And professional tasters like myself figure out their own processes. For me, when my palate's not on, I just don't taste. But that's going to do it for this week's Above the Char. Hey, if you want to be like Matthew, hit me up on fredminnick.com. That's fredminnick.com. Just click the contact button and send me your question. If I like it, I'll read it on the air. Cheers.
Barrel Craft Spirits sources different spirits and barrels from all over the world to create a one-of-a-kind tasting experience. Find out more at barrelbourbon.com. Welcome, everybody, back to another episode of Bourbon Pursuit, the official podcast of bourbon. Kenny here, riding solo, but in a new location setup today. We're actually on the Beam property, and it's been part of the family history here, but it's also been a part of Bardstown. And really, this episode today is talking about how we are bringing together Bardstown, and not just because of the city, but through bourbon as well. And this is actually going through and looking at the Bardstown collection here, and we'll give you some information about it. But as everybody knows, Bardstown is the bourbon capital of the world. It's got 11 distillery experiences within just 16 miles of the town center, and each of them do something just a little bit uniquely different on the way they do this. So I've got some great guests lined up today to kind of talk about A, the bourbon, B, Bardstown, see how they kind of like know each other. What, frenemies? Is that maybe the best way to kind of put this thing too? No, I mean, everybody kind of comes together here. But today on the show, we've got Connor O'Driscoll, the master distiller from Heaven Hill, Steve Nally, the legendary distiller over at Bardstown Bourbon Company, and as well as Freddie No, 8th generation distiller at Jim Beam's. Fellas, doing okay?
Doing great.
Good. Welcome back, because you've all been on the show before.
It's good to be back. Thanks.
Yeah, I know. So maybe everybody knows your voices. Kind of, Connor, give us a little bit of, a 30-second little kind of intro about like the kind of role that you kind of had in this Bardstown collection, and sort of really what it's starting to mean to you as this begins to start rolling out.
Well, so Heaven Hill, headquartered in Bardstown, distillery originally there till burnt down. Our distillery is now in Louisville, but we have a lot of warehouses in Bardstown, and that's where our DNA is. That's where we're from.
And in a massive new visitor center as
Yeah,
well.
the Heaven Hill Bourbon experience. It's pretty impressive.
It is.
And actually, the 2 barrels that are going into our contribution to the Bardstown Collective came from that same campus, Warehouse M, I believe.
Did you select the Warehouse M? Did you?
I was part of the selection team that selected the best whiskey for this that happened to come from Warehouse M.
Yeah.
So
when you do a selection, do people ever, do you get vetoed? Does it ever happen?
Yes. To be honest, yes. It's a very collaborative process, and a lot of blind tasting, and what do you think? What do you think? This one, that one, and we generally come together on a good selection.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And then Steve, welcome back to the show as well.
Hey, thanks for having me back on here. Although I'm not the new kid on the block, Bardstown Bourbon Company is. We tend to bring a new vision to the collaborative process, the community of Bardstown. We try to bring a new vision, an experience, so to speak, and to help put this collaboration, this team effort together to bring spirits together from all distilleries. We as an industry have always been friends. Work together, and for Bardstown Bourbon Company to put this collaboration together, this blend together to team up with all of our friends, has been a great experience for us. And again, Bardstown Bourbon Company has worked together as a team to present our collaboration, our product, to join together with our friends.
So when you were picking some barrels for this, what were you kind of looking at? If you're the new person on the block, the new kid on the block, a lot of your stuff is just kind of starting to come to age. So what was the process like for you all when you were trying to find some of these cherry barrels?
Well, we want to put something together that's really a great experience, a great flavor profile, to present to the public. When they taste it, they say, hey, this is a great product. And it may or may not be necessarily all ours. So, we present something that's really great, unique flavor profile to bring forward to the public, to the consumer.
Yeah, and you all are very transparent and honest about everything you do with that through the Fusion series and Discovery series and everything like that too.
Well, that's exactly right. And, we've had great response from that to present to the consumer that, hey, this is what it is. It may or may not be ours, but this is what it is. And this is how we put it together. And, historically, it's been a lot of times the distiller is the one that presents this or one that picks it. Well, we don't do that at Bardstown. We pick it as a team. We put culinary, beverage people, the marketing people, everybody has a response or an input on how it goes together. And we have very good results out of how this happens.
I know. We've been seeing our friend Danny Bardstown every once in a while over in the blending lab on Instagram. We can see that he's got some hand in some of this kind of stuff coming out too.
That's exactly right. And it goes all the way through the company. It's the, the Danny Bardstown that does it, some of the people on the tour team, the beverage team, culinary team, marketing, all those people are up to put a blend together to have it rated to be selected final product that's put on the market. So it's not just myself or Danny or anybody. All the people that work at the distillery have an opportunity to put a blend together to be up for selection.
For sure. And then Freddie, welcome back to the show as well.
Yeah, glad to be here, Kenny.
Yeah.
Being a part of this collection and being able to work, as you said, frenemies when we started, and I like Steve's comment of friends better. We get together at festivals, things, spending time together, just talking about whiskey and really driving the industry forward, whether we're in Kentucky or out on the road traveling. We all run into each other and we're all there doing a very common job, right? Trying to promote bourbon. So whenever the opportunity came to be a part of this collection, it was a no-brainer for me. I kind of helped push it through some of our hoops and regulatory hoops we jumped through. But being the 8th generation of the Beam family and all but 2 of those generations residing right there in the same home that my dad currently lives in, Bardstown, I'm very proud to be from there. And then to be able to honor the bourbon capital of the world and kind of put it on a pedestal that it deserves. It was a great opportunity. And like I said, it was a no-brainer for me and for us because of our connection to the community.
All right. So the same question to these guys. Where was your hand in picking these barrels?
I drove this one. It was kind of funny. I was actually working on Little Book Chapter 5 whenever this opportunity came about. So I was kind of already knee deep in wading through our inventories, looking for some unique barrels, recalling some barrels that I knew were pretty special. And it kind of worked out very well. There was a lot of barrels that myself and 2 on our blending team really liked. And there was only about 6 or 7 of them left in the lot. And
6 or 7 of these
the
barrels total.
Just kind of sitting in the alcove, to be honest. I used some of them for Little Book before. We tasted them back to see if they were still okay. But we ended up not using them in Little Book 5. So when this came up, I instantly said, I want to use that. But kind of going in the blending route myself, I wanted to bring together 2 separate liquid streams. So I utilized a Jim Beam liquid stream, sitting at about 17 years old, and then a 16-year-old Old Granddad liquid stream. So still 2 bourbons, but blending them together, creating a pretty robust profile. And so I'd say I had a pretty solid hand in it. But again, I was already kind of knee deep in working on Little Book. And with the blending team that was working with me, we all worked together to kind of finalize it. But we already had a good direction because we had been tasting so many barrels preparing for that product development session.
Well, I'm not surprised that you went a little bit of a blending route. I mean, with everything you're doing with Little Book, it kind of seems like that's going to be your thing that you want to kind of put your stamp on.
I just think there's a lot of opportunity in blending, whether it's blending 2 bourbons together, 4 bourbons, or rye with bourbon, other things as well. It's expanding the flavor profile of American whiskey and kind of going back to, working with my friends in the industry. That's what we're all trying to do is draw more people into the industry. So any way we can kind of change the flavors that we can deliver and talk to consumers about that and see what is it that they like about what we've done there. And you can kind of get, is it worth doing a straight product with some similar flavor profile? So I think blending is kind of the next big extension of American whiskey. If you look at, it kind of already is here, I guess, a little bit. But, between bourbon, rye, blended, I think that there's a big prominent spot that it can play because it's bringing together straight spirits that are already very prominent in American whiskey.
I mean, I'll say I agree because we kind of do the same thing here. But another thing is like you had 16 and 17-year-old barrels just kind of sitting around. You said only like 6 of these in the lot. Was anybody pissed that you were kind of taking them? Like, is it like,
No.
you're like, these are Freddie's barrels. He gets to choose what he wants to do with them.
As we were getting ready to get on, I was scrolling through to look at the date just to make sure I was right on the ages. And on there, I got basically the computer model sent to me, and it says all the information about the whiskey. And at the very end, it says hold for Little Book. So no one, I was kind of getting, I would be me getting mad at myself. I reserved the barrels. I think, it's a very fitting collection and an opportunity to kind of release some of my kind of special barrels I had tagged for Little Book to a project. So
yeah, that's awesome. And Connor, we didn't really get to talk to a minute about this with you. So the barrels that you selected, I mean, do you have some ideas and details of what you did and kind of like what went into the ones that you chose?
Yeah, well, they're 9 years old, and one of the cool things about them, they were right next to each other for those 9 years in the warehouse, and they both taste completely different. So same age, same batch, same everything, except the whiskey gods made one kind of sweet smoky and the other kind of more wood forward. And, you blend them together, you get this rich, robust, delicious whiskey.
Yeah. So you kind of went the same route and said, hey, we're going to put these two together.
Yeah.
We're going to blend them.
And then, the total is greater than the sum of the parts. So.
Yeah. I mean, was that the idea when you all were going into this? Like, we knew that everybody had to kind of choose two barrels and blend them together. Was that the kind of on the onset here?
I don't know. It's just we wanted something special, something good, something unique.
You want to make something a little differentiated.
Yeah.
It kind of, to your point, you had two barrels there. We could have used two of the same barrel, but to make something a little bit differentiated, a little bit more unique, it is kind of cool to be able to use blending, like we said, either just in bourbon, blending two bourbons together, a little bit deeper complexity. It really drives a lot of robust flavor when you can bring things together. To Connor's point, it's better than the sum of its parts.
Yeah, for sure. And it's because people are getting bored of single barrels. Is that what happens now? We're like,
two
Everyone
barrel
just wants
blends.
something new,
That's the new trend, 2 barrel blends.
2 barrel blends.
Well, if you put two of the same barrels together, you're really not creating a true blend. You're just kind of taking two really good barrels and you're really not enhancing them. When you put two different flavor profiles together, then you're really creating a very unique flavor profile that adds two different flavors together to create a great flavor or a great, unique, different product.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that we kind of look at what this collaboration means, it is for, really looking at the city of Bardstown. Freddie, I know that, you've grown and lived and been a part of Bardstown for, your entire life.
34 years.
Yeah. Connor's a little bit of a transplant, right?
I ain't from around here.
We take well to transplants around.
Yeah.
But Freddie, I kind of start with you as well. So, when we look at the city of Bardstown and really what this means, it's really trying to shine a spotlight on Bardstown being the bourbon capital of the world and kind of bringing together everything with the packaging and what it's being donated towards, and just to make sure that it's really highlighting what the city is really building on.
I'll go back to a conversation when I was kind of selling this in at the company was, what does it mean to you for Bardstown to be the bourbon capital of the world? And what I said was, it's this unique location where you can come and taste all these different products from these different companies and different distilleries. And, when you talk about bourbon, the laws are kind of cut and dry, right? It's very simple what you have to do. But, you come visit us, you hear one story and one way into what we're doing to what we think is our flavor profile. You go talk to Steve at Bardstown Bourbon, same kind of, like I said, same regulations, but how they're doing it, totally differentiated. And then boom, again, you walk over and you meet with Connor and talk about what their heritage is and how they've influenced bourbon. Same rules, same regulations, very different story, very different elements to it. And it's with all the distilleries within this area. And so to me, that's what I was telling the folks on the team was, Bardstown is the bourbon capital of the world because it's truly the place where you can come and experience the most bourbon, the most differentiated experiences within bourbon in a similar location. I mean, money wasn't an object. You could go all over the country, right? But it'd take you a hell of a lot longer. You could come here for 3 days and taste a lot of really good whiskey and hear really inspiring stories about why they're doing it the way they're doing it and how we're all doing it. So that, to me, that's what it means, is amplifying Bardstown, because it's this location where you can come as a visitor, as a connoisseur of bourbon, and just be totally immersed and not just one person's kind of thought process into what bourbon means, but you really get the holistic industry experience when you come to Bardstown.
Yeah, I mean, there's no shortage of places to visit when you come here, and that's what people always ask me. They're like, "Oh, I need to go. I want to go on the visit the Bourbon Trail." I'm like, "All right, you got to choose. You're going to go left, you're going to go right. If you start in Louisville, which way are you going to go?" And I'm like, "If you're going to go right and you go to Bardstown, you're going to spend a whole day there, and you can easily spend 2 because there's no shortage of places to go visit, things to see, a whiskey history museum. Like it just continues to keep going on." And one of the cool things that I feel that Bardstown Bourbon Company really, I guess you could say, started this rolling train of creating more elevated visitor experiences and having something that is, I mean, let's just talk about the moss wall for a second, right? Like, how often do you go to a distillery and you see a moss wall and everybody's like, I got to get a picture behind that thing. It's like going to Nashville and people get pictures with the Angel's wings, right? Everybody got to get a picture of the moss wall at Bardstown.
Well, there's a couple of things that to add to Freddie's comments. The rules have changed to allow us as the industry to expand on our visitors' experience. Several years ago when visitors came to our facilities, we could show them through the facility, we could tell them about the facility, but we could only give them a small sample of the product. They could not have a meal at the distillery. They could not have a cocktail. They could not do a lot of things at the distillery. Well, these rules have changed in the last couple of years to allow a lot of things to happen. We can now allow, I like to relate it back to the Napa Valley experience. They can come there, they can have the tour, they can taste products, they can have cocktails, they can have a meal at the distillery, and they can actually spend days at this area, and they can enjoy it. So that is allowing us as an industry to give the experiences that 10 years ago could not happen. So that is allowing us to really present ourselves more in depth than we could 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah, and I think that really, again, I think that sort of amplified and lit the fire of this whole let's make Bardstown a real destination type of experience. And you all really kind of pioneered that effort. But now we've seen Heaven Hill start coming out of the gate too. How big was this renovation? Did you all just get finished doing?
Well, it took us 3 years, and I don't know. You hear $20 million thrown around.
Give
$20 million.
Right. Give or take $1 million between friends, right?
Small loan of. Yeah. But it's. I mean, if you get to come to Bardstown, like the other guys said, I mean, there's so many great places to see. But our new bourbon experience is pretty special. A lot of cool stuff there.
Yeah, there definitely is. I've had a chance to kind of go around. I can't wait for people to come and people to visit the Five Brothers bar that's been up there and stuff like that. You were able to release a new bourbon that's a part of that too. So there's a lot of cool things that have been happening with there.
A lot of, just reflection of the history of the Shapiro family and, the Five Brothers who founded it almost 86 years ago now. So we're not quite 200 years old, but been around longer than BBC though. We're kind of right in the middle there. But no, it's cool. I mean, there you see a lot of visitor experiences and there's a lot of really good ones, but I'm pretty proud of what the team did to put the new bourbon experience together for us. It's pretty cool.
Absolutely. And I should also mention that, we're just talking to 3 members of this collection today. We still have Log Still Distillery and Preservation Distillery that are part of this as well. And do we have
we got Log Still walking in the door
got Log
right
Still
now.
walking in the door right now.
Yeah, let's go to commercial.
Well, yeah. Spirits of French Lick pays tribute to the many distilleries that once dotted the southern hills of Indiana. They focus on using the best practices of those early times in balance with the improved methods of today, delivering the finest handcrafted bottled and bond bourbons to an audience that's eager for an alternative to the big guys. Their distilling philosophy is balance between the distiller's art and the contribution of the barrel, time, and patience to bring you an unparalleled quality and depth of flavor. Spirits of French Lick's motto is simple: respect the grain. You can find all Spirits of French Lick's products and their new releases on sealbox.com. But don't just take Fred Minnick's word for it. Find out for yourself. And check out spiritsoffrenchlick.com and follow them on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Remember to always drink responsibly. Spread holiday cheer at Total Wine & More, a wonderland for every wine, spirits, and beer lover on your list, including you. Wrap up gift giving with top-notch bourbons for top-shelf collectors. and pair it with a roasted duck for a jolly match. Uncork joy with a merry Cabernet and meet under the mistletoe. And don't miss this year's top 20 wines handpicked by elves. Ring in the new year with their top bubbly picks, and with over 8,000 wines, 4,000 spirits, and 2,500 beers, you'll find just the right bottle that'll look great in a bow, and at prices that feel like a present. Choose curbside pickup, in-store pickup, shipping, or delivery, and fill your sleigh in-store or at TotalWine.com. Spirits not available in Virginia or North Carolina. The Heaven Hill Bourbon Experience underwent an expansion, renovation, and renaming as a culmination of a multi-year $19 million investment in Kentucky's signature industry and a model for the future of tourism. The state-of-the-art visitor center is an interactive, educational space offering signature exhibits unique to the visitor center, including a You Do Bourbon experience, where guests are guided through a tasting of unique products. And to commemorate your visit, you'll have the opportunity to bottle your favorite bourbon or whiskey through the custom-designed filling machines, and then you can apply the label and personalize it in the bottling room. To learn more about bourbon, Heaven Hill's history, and their award-winning portfolio, go to heavenhilldistillery.com/booking to schedule a tour. Heaven Hill reminds you to think wisely, drink wisely. Cheers. And we have another little bit of a late arrival to the show, but we're glad she's here. So we have Lynn Dant. She's the COO of Still Distillery. So welcome, Lynn. Glad to have you here.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
So I think let's go ahead and give you an opportunity to introduce yourself as well to sort of everybody. We kind of went through here and everybody kind of talked about the barrels they selected. They talked about, what kind of was the impetus for it as well. So can you talk a little bit about some of the whiskey you all did select for your contribution to this?
Sure. Yes, thanks. So we have a 7-year-old high rye bourbon. High rye is typical of what the Dant family legacy kind of has always produced as the Dants have been in the industry. Obviously with Log Still, we're bringing the Dants back into the bourbon industry. We're very excited about my cousin Wally and Charles and I really following Wally's vision to get the family back in. And so we selected a high rye that, again, is consistent with what our family tends to drink and enjoy a lot. This one has, some nice notes of cinnamon and clove, and has a really nice long finish. So we're really pleased to be part of this effort with these guys and contributing to the good of the community, as well as offering our customers some nice bourbon.
Yeah, I think what Steve had mentioned at the very beginning. He said that they were the new kids on the block. You're more of the new kids on the block.
Relatively speaking, yes, Log Still.
Yeah, relatively speaking, for sure. Yeah, because what you all were founded way long ago, but you all have just kind of been, I guess, rebirthed. I guess you could say. What's the term you like to use?
Well, I think we're reviving the family.
Reviving, maybe
legacy.
Rebirth. That's a little.
One too.
Yeah.
Rebirth sounds gross. Yeah, I should take that one out of the vocabulary. But Lynn, the other thing that we kind of we left off on was talking about the city of Bardstown and kind of really what this means. You all have started really investing into some of the stuff that's happening at Log Still. I hear about the concerts that are happening and everything like that. Kind of talk about what it really means to you to start bringing in a lot of this stuff of really trying to bring more flavor to Bardstown, if you will.
Yeah, sure. So, we are really proud to be back in Nelson County. We're actually in the southern part of the county, but, Bardstown's a huge part of this county. And we're really about, reestablishing our family where, my great-great-grandfather started almost a couple hundred years ago. We're on the property where my granddaddy had a distillery back before Prohibition and after Prohibition. We obviously took a little bit of a break then. But, for us, it's all about giving back to the community and giving back to the area that, did so much for our family, early 1800s on. And so, to be able to contribute to Bardstown and what Bardstown is doing to really focus, this area of the state and, of course, the country as really the center of bourbon and bourbon industry, and working with these guys with, some huge name distilleries to support the community and everything that Bardstown is trying to do is just really an honor for us.
Do you have a favorite person that you booked so far for your concert series?
Little Big Town was a
was a big one.
Was a big one. We've really tried in that sense to bring, some entertainment. There wasn't an outdoor amphitheater. We work with Kim Houston, obviously in Bardstown, for the Nelson County Economic Development to just bring a little bit of a different thing. We're focused on family very much. We want to give families an opportunity to have a place to come and relax and eat dinner and enjoy a show and, take a train ride, all while enjoying bourbon at the same time.
Where's the train going in and out of?
The train is the one that runs from New Hope to Boston.
Okay.
And, it'll stop at the Kentucky Railway Museum in New Haven. Certainly is a big partner with us where we'll have, dinner trains. We're getting some overnight cars where folks can actually stay in one of the cars as a B&B in addition to the other 5 B&Bs that we have on site. So just really trying to make it a family atmosphere on the Dant Crossing campus.
For sure. That's awesome. And the other thing about this is that everything that's being built as a part of the Bardstown Collective, it is all the 100% of the proceeds are being donated to a few different places. You got the Main Street Association, hospitality, first responders. And I know this is, it's a big deal. I mean, bourbon raises a ton of money for charities every single year. And the cost of these bottles are going to be around $160 to $250 a piece. So you can kind of look at that and think of the impact that it's going to be when you think of 2 barrels from every single distillery and what it's going to go towards, a lot of these great initiatives. So for you all, what does this really mean as a part of helping build a kind of a better bourbon culture? Freddie, I'll kind of start with you as well, because charity means a lot to bourbon. It seems it's one of those things that whether it's the distilleries or whether it's just the online bourbon communities, everybody seems to be trying to help the greater good. And whether it's donating bottles and finding good charities, it seems to be one of the things that's kind of blown up over the past maybe 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, I think, when you talk about the bourbon industry as a whole, it's a relationship-driven industry. And to me, I look at it a lot. When you look at it that way and you have families that are oriented in the industry, it becomes a family business, right? Whether it is a family business or not. And it becomes caring about the people of the community that has kind of helped you be a part of this industry. So the things you named off with the Bardstown Main Street, first responders there in the community, and the hospitality who, a lot of times they may send people who are at their restaurant or bar in town, where should we visit? They're big advocates for us as bourbon industry as well. So I really think the industry as a whole and the way that it has been shaped over the course of history has set it up to kind of be to be a charity. Because, I mean, generally you hear of people in the industry that may need help, and you've probably met them, whether it's a consumer or a distiller or just anybody. We're all there to kind of lend a helping hand. We like to see, all ships rise with the rising tide. So I think when you can support the community that's kind of helped or not helped, that has shaped the industry along with the distilleries that are around it, it's a great opportunity. And going to your point, bourbon has always been a charitable industry. And I think it kind of goes back to that point. It's been built off relationships, family members, friends, all getting together. Connor touched on the fire that moved their distillery from Bardstown, but all the distilleries pitched in to help them out, to keep them going, because we knew losing a brother or a sister in a distillery like that could have a bigger impact on the whole industry and could have a negative impact on us. So we're all very close, and I think it just kind of bleeds over into our consumers, bleeds over into folks like you who are very connected to us in the industry. It just becomes a very close-knit industry when you have people that care, and I think that's what you see in this industry is people that care. And then to have the opportunity to come together and do something like this, it quickly became a no-brainer, I'm sure, for all of us anyway.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and I think it's one of the things that's everybody has the ability to kind of donate. I mean, you all are sitting on some of the best whiskey in the world, and being able to provide that as a mechanism to drive forward and create good change, I think is very valuable. Steve, I kind of want to get your thoughts on charity and how bourbon sort of impacted that as well.
Well, in a way, I don't look at it as charity. These groups have really bent over backwards in the past couple of years to not just our community, but the whole world, to keep it going. And this is, in a very, very small way, a way of just saying thank you for what they've done. And, it's something that we can do, and we're very proud to do as an industry, to say, thank you, thank you, thank you, to keep them going. They, like I said, they've gone through a rough time, and in some ways, I don't think the world appreciates them as much as they should. So, if we can do a very small something to help them out, to show our appreciation, then I think that's the least we can do.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing about this is also in coordination with Visit Bardstown. So the community and everybody else is kind of really behind it. And we touched on community quite a bit when we were doing this. Now, the other thing that's unique is that these are also like separate releases. They're being released at different times on different days at each of these distilleries. So who's going to be lining up first at each distillery to go and get their own bottle? Anybody camping out?
I haven't looked at the map of how it's being released, but I mean, I'd be glad to. I hope I can make it where I can pop around to all of them and get them, but I'm sure there'll be a couple that I won't be able to just based on logistics.
The other thing is that when we talk about what does this look like from as a consumer, they think, okay, well, I got to go all these places and get these bottles. They might be thinking, oh, God, they're going to be so different. Like, what are they going to look like? Actually, it's going to be almost pretty uniform. There's going to be unified packaging between all these distilleries and how they're going to come out, and there's just going to be a little kind of note at the bottom that kind of says this is where it came from. I think that just kind of goes back into, and Connor, I'll kind of lead this one to you. It kind of just goes into how everybody's kind of working together. They're working together for a greater good here, and I'll kind of toss this one your way. Like, we've seen this over the span of a few decades. Every once in a while, you see a bunch of distilleries kind of coming together to create something. Kind of talk about, why don't we do this more often? Why don't we find more distilleries kind of coming together to maybe creating blending projects, creating unified packaging and stuff like that? Kind of get your thoughts on that.
Well, that's an easy question. Thank you.
Yeah, a lot to unpack there.
Well, I think Freddie hit on earlier. The at the production level, we're all close buddies. You get out in the market, it's a little more cutthroat, I guess.
For sure.
But definitely at this production level, we help each other out whenever we can. I was at a neighboring distillery in Louisville yesterday, just discussing some common issues we have. So we're happy to share, to work at that level and share ideas, share best practices. So, but this project could be a really good first step in projects like that. It's clearly it's kind of fun to be doing this. And the you're right. The packaging is it's kind of celebrating Bardstown and not necessarily the distillery that I came from. Although our names will be on the front. But yeah, the point of this is community, collaboration, great whiskey for a great cause.
Yeah, I think there was a Heaven Hill thing that came. I think it was a long time ago. It might have been maybe a Parker Beam thing or something like that.
The Unity bottle.
The Unity bottle. That's what I was thinking of. I was like, I know there was something like that came out a long time ago. But you don't hear about those things. And I think it'd be, if this is a driving change and something that people can see, like, oh, like this is something that we can all kind of build upon, and whether it's for charity or whether it's unique things, I think it's something that could really spark interest to the consumer market too.
There you go.
Too, like what Connor was saying, in production we're all very close knit, but then when it comes to sitting down and like doing a project like this, it takes so many different entities to pull together from all these different companies. That's what makes it tough.
We have to also recognize that people sitting in this room, we're like, yeah, absolutely, let's do it.
All day, every day.
There's about 10 layers above everybody's head here. They're like, well, I don't really know we should do this. So that's understandable. Now, the other thing is that, so there's also, I think, a booklet that's detailing kind of some of this project that kind of goes into it. Some really good packaging. So I guess, as we kind of start winding this down a little bit, if anybody that does want to know more about this, they can go to bardstowncollection.com. They can get an overview of it, kind of get an idea of where to run to and find all these things. But, for you all, I kind of want to start kind of wrapping it up, is kind of give some final thoughts on, where this project is going and really what it means to you to help provide something for the greater good for the city of Bardstown. And we'll kind of go around the table here. So Lynn, we'll start with you.
Yeah, first, I just want to kind of add on to what we were talking about earlier around the community. And I think as kind of the newest kid on the block, that is one thing that has just been, really awesome about getting back into this industry, is just the camaraderie and the collegiality that you find on the manufacturing side. And so I think it's kind of a natural extension to your question around the Bardstown collection, just to build on that and not just show folks that are familiar with the industry here in Bardstown, but anyone that comes from outside. We have visitors from all over the world come to Bardstown, and just show them what a special and unique community this is, and that it's truly is about working together on the production side, and that in doing that we are going beyond each of our own individual companies and entities to help others. And I think that's always a good and positive message that the world needs more of. And this is, we're taken from a very profitable industry, but really trying to give back and do good in the community and for others. And so that's, to me, what this Bardstown collection is really about at the end of the day. And I've had some people kind of raise their eyebrows at the prices that the bottles are going to be at. And I said, but this is really not about, we're not making any money off of this. It's all about giving back to the community. And we're using something that we're blessed to be able to produce that others enjoy and make some money off of it in order to give back to those that Steve really, really well articulated earlier, don't always get the praise and recognition that they need. And so that's really what I think this is, a first year of a really great program that Bardstown has helped pull us together kind of out of our individual days. We all have bad days, so kind of saying earlier, but pulling us kind of out of the weeds of, the day-to-day production and getting us to contribute to the greater good and the greater cause, and doing it with folks that we really enjoy hanging out with. So,
well, I don't want to. Well, maybe people feel like don't say it's a very profitable industry. They got to know that we work hard, right? We work hard. And there's a lot of mouths to feed that go down this line from that $50 bottle, right?
Yeah.
I'll say it's profitable in the sense we make probably a better margin than the firemen and policemen do. So how's
there
that?
you go. That's a better way to put it. Connor, what about you?
I think the part that resonates with me is the giving back to the hospitality industry, because without them, and we can make whiskey all day long, but until bartenders, wait staff, and the rest actually sell it to consumers, we're just making nothing. What's the point? So they are.
Now you got a lot of whiskey.
A lot of whiskey. 1.9 million barrels is what we got. So, but yeah, so and of course they've been so hard hit by COVID that this is just a great opportunity for us to give back, recognize their incredibly important part in this industry.
Yeah. And the other thing, Lynn, I kind of want to touch on as well, is you had mentioned the price point. Honestly, a $150, $250 bottle nowadays that doesn't seem to raise a ton of eyebrows, I think, into the enthusiast crowd, especially people that are, if you're giving towards charity, I think people assume they have a little bit easier time doing that. But you also have the enthusiast community, the collector community, people that want to go and get them all. I mean, there's going to be people that go to every single one of them. They want to have the entire collection. Yep. And I think that just kind of goes to show that, we have yet to see the ceiling on what people can do for bourbon. But I still think it's still very reasonably priced of what you can get, especially for something that is going towards such a great thing.
And they're all like super unique whiskeys, and we've all picked great whiskeys.
Yeah, I mean,
we're super proud of. Our names are on them, so yeah, it's cool stuff.
You got the people in this room that helped select these barrels and had a hand in it, and it's not to say that whomever down at warehousing just said, "Hey, go pick 2 barrels." Like these people actually, the master distillers here and the 8th generation distiller too. I want to put any kind of words in your mouth there, ready? But
don't got that one just yet.
But had a real hand in this, and they really wanted to make sure they showcase some of the best whiskey possible from each of the representative distilleries to be able to put that forward and make sure you have the best experience too. But Steve, I'll kind of let you kind of go as well as kind of what this whole project means and sort of like where you think it's the next stage of it could go to.
Well, there's a couple of things that, the word Kentucky being on bourbon really has an emphasis. When you can tie the camaraderie that the distilleries all working together really showcases that how well we partner with each other. When you tie all that together and then we come out with a label or a product that we're all showcasing together, that just kind of ties everything together too. So, when this all comes out and this can be a foregoing product, maybe year after year or whatever, then it can start a product trend, you might say. So, it's showcasing Kentucky product, one thing, then it's showcasing Bardstown as the bourbon capital of the world. So it can showcase all the companies working together. So it's really starting to showcase how well we work together. And then the products that we put out are really exquisite products. So it's just kind of showcasing Bardstown as the bourbon capital of the world. And this showing what great products we can put out and showcasing how we can all work together as an industry.
So you're trying to say if there's any question about it, there's not anymore?
There's
like,
not it.
Like Bardstown is.
Bardstown.
And Freddie, we'll call you the hometown hero here because you have grown up around Bardstown and kind of really what this means to you and maybe even to the, your family as well.
Yeah, I mean, just, listening to my colleagues here talk about this scenario, it's kind of hard to even add much to it. But your question about what the opportunity is, I think that's the biggest answer to it, is that huge opportunity that's kind of presented itself to uplift the hospitality, first responders, the main street of Bardstown. And just to tease a little bit, the conversation we were having before we started, this could maybe lead to getting that thing we were talking about above the street there, and help us solidify it. I agree with Steve. I think it is solidified. Bardstown's the bourbon capital of the world. But we need some signage that says that. Me kind of pitching that maybe this could lead to something like that. But I think just generally,
why stop there? Hire a private plane and get some banners behind.
Fly around all day. Just fly around all day. But I think just like I said, that opportunity to amplify the community, Bardstown itself. It is we're talking about Bardstown. We hadn't really talked about it. It is a pretty small community, and no one's really mentioned that. So the impact that we can have by doing something like this in a small community that does celebrate each of our individual companies is great. And so I look forward to seeing what it, as Steve was saying, 3, 4, 5 years from now, when we continue to put these unique whiskeys into this packaging that isn't about us, it's about Bardstown, right? That's what we said. It's just very small, written on there. It's more about supporting that community. So I honestly, I think the opportunity is endless for what it can do, for what we're looking for to do, which is drive that Bardstown is the bourbon capital of the world. So I think there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of different avenues that we can take to really celebrate bourbon, celebrate Bardstown, and put it on the pedestal. And I think that's, to your point about what my family would think about this, I think it would make them very proud to know, that we've stuck in this community. Obviously, David M. Beam, who moved the family to Nelson County from just Washington County, saw something here, a railroad, one thing, but an opportunity as well. And to think that our family's kind of stuck in that same area, I'm sure it would make him very proud to know that here we are about, a little over 170 years after he moved there, coming together and amplifying that community. So I think everyone in my family would be very proud. I know I'm very proud to be a part of it and to kind of see where this thing can go for not only the community I live in, but the industry that I work in and help support.
Well, we've heard railroads mentioned twice now. So I guess that's the next thing that has to go in fun is the railroad that takes you, maybe it's a tram. It's a tram that takes you to all these distilleries and kind of makes it happen.
You think about it, though, there is railroad tracks. I mean, we've got one that runs right. You all crossed it twice coming to where we're at. Back in the day when you were making whiskey, you had to have a railroad. That was how you got your grain in. So you might be onto something there about having a railroad connection to all the distilleries. If we can open up some of them spurs. I know we concreted over one of ours here at Claremont, so we might have to get the chisel out and start chiseling that back out, right? Send people down to see Lynn on the other side of the county, right?
Yeah, we got some people that are good at chiseling out spurs.
We might have to have a conversation after this, then see how we can get this going.
There you go. I'm glad we sparked that. And if I do a bullet train while we're at it too, so it only takes you like 2.5 minutes, right? 2.5 minutes between distilleries. Like you can really cram a lot in a day. That's one way to do it.
You'd have to have some ramps, all them knobs and stuff through Kentucky. You can send a bullet train through here, you're going to be jumping and ramping, sliding around curves.
I mean, it comes with a waiver.
Okay.
See,
now not just bourbon enthusiasts, thrill-seeking enthusiasts need to be coming through.
Yeah, just hold on your drink real tightly and maybe put a lid on it.
Hold my whiskey.
Yeah, watch this. Right. But I want to say thank you again for coming on the show, talking about the Bardstown collection here. I think it's really an awesome opportunity and really what you all have been able to put together. And honestly, I can't wait to start trying some of these whiskeys and seeing what you all put together as well, because I think anybody that's an enthusiast can kind of really get behind the idea of what you did do and going and trying to find some of the best representations from each of your distilleries as well. So for anybody that wants to find out more information, go to bardstowncollection.com. You can see a lot of the information there, and the bottles will range anywhere between $160 to $250 each. But with that, I want to say, Lynn, Connor, Steve, Freddie, thank you again for coming on the show.
Thanks, Kenny.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Got it. And with that, we'll see everybody next week.